Here we go.
There we go. And here we are. So, everybody, great to see you all. Welcome to the Trippin Thompsons podcast. And we are revved up and ready to go for another engaging and enlightening episode with all of you. But before we dive into all this fun stuff, let's get these co-hosts introduced. I'm Brickell.
And I'm Victor. Look at that.
I know we are super efficient with our welcomes. And of course, we want to hear from all of you. So let us know who you are out in the viewer and listener community. But super glad that you're here. And Trippin Thompson podcast, we are focusing on all great things about entrepreneurship, career success, and of course, the wonderful adventures life serves up for the ones that we choose to jump into and get going.
That's right.
So this episode, what are we chatting about?
We are chatting about how to create a great brand.
A great
Not
brand.
like a cattle brand, but a great brand.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yikes. That sounds painful, but okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we're not talking about that.
We are not talking about that. We are talking about personal brands, right? And, have you been in situations where maybe you're at an event or whatever the environment might be, and there could be some people gathered around and start talking about someone who is not within that group that's having the little chat. And, people start talking about the individual and expressing things that maybe they know this person for, as far as like their characteristic, or, they're a good person, they're charitable, they're high energy, however they might be characterizing these individuals. And, there could be situations too where maybe somebody voices an opinion that is counter to the yay, rah, rah, all feeling favorable about this individual because maybe they had a different experience. But have you been in those situations? And then, from those situations, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, I have been in those situations. Sometimes it's the
what do we do?
Do you know about?
Yeah.
Or other times it's you're having a conversation and all of a sudden someone's name comes up and people want to talk about them, and so really what that's about is that's about where does your brand show up at when you're not around. So it can be important because you're not present. So it's helpful to know there are probably people talking about you, and what they're saying is part of how they experience your brand.
Yeah, it certainly can be. Or they could just be saying things that they heard from others because maybe they don't know you at all or don't know you well. But the thing about your personal brand is that it's always working. So either we're getting that brand to work for us or we're doing things that are getting that brand to work against us. And when we think about our personal brand, we want to think about it in the context of, how you just show up every day, just who you are. What are the things that you do to follow through on maybe commitments or actions that you said you're going to take, how you interact with people, how you make other people feel, how we talk about other individuals, and then equally how they talk about us. So all of these things really help form our brand identity and can influence how others perceive us and then how they think about our own brand.
And that's why we're going to dig into that. So how do you create a brand that really reflects who you are and who you want to be known as, right? Whether it's in your business, in your career, and just in life in general, because actually all three of those things kind of work together. You want to do it and you want to do it with intention.
Do it with intention. Yes. Yeah. So let's kind of jumpstart this topic and talk about a scenario. And we're going to talk about Riviera because it sounds like such a great place to be right now. And so Riviera, a mid-career individual, has 15 years of corporate experience, and those 15 years have been formed by a variety of things. It's been part of a sales role, it's been part of a marketing role, it's been part of HR. And so, Riviera's kind of brand is maybe to some uncertain, and maybe even to herself a little bit uncertain. And so she's feeling stuck with, how do I brand myself? And when I have done so many different things. And this is maybe something that others are also kind of struggling with, is really, how do I narrow the field and think about, what's that key message and what does that look like? And so really we want to be able to start thinking about this as far as defining what brand really is. So do you want to help us understand what a brand is?
Sure thing, because some people think about brand and they think about companies and their logos, their taglines, like Nike. I said it again. I said a company name. But hey, there are different taglines that people have. And even people on like social media have taglines sometimes. But brand is really about your reputation. It's your reputation, your influence, the visibility that you have that's consistent, whether you are present and visible or not present and visible, like at the water cooler we were talking about earlier. You're still visible to people. It's what people are saying about you when you're in the room and when you're not in the room. Mm-hmm. Although a lot of times what they say when you're not in the room might be more of an accurate reflection of what they really think, but not always, right?
Not always, yeah.
So, I mean, it's important.
It should be influenced based on the others that are in the environment. And I would throw caution to people who think that they're taking advantage of situations like that, right? That it's always better to build people up. I'll put it that way.
Yes, it is. And that's actually another episode that we could do, right? And but if if you think about your brand and it's always happening, it's like compounding on itself. So with each experience, it just adds to, and it adds to how people think about you. And a great brand tends to be rooted in 4 things: your reputation, which we talked about before, which we mentioned, influence, visibility, and consistency, right? And there are some building blocks that hold all that together. So
there are, and so there's 3 of them actually. And so thinking about the first building block that we're going to talk about, doesn't have to come first, but all 3 are important. The first one being identity. And these are more of like the tangibles that, people can see and experience with you. So think about your voice, think about your actions, your gestures, your behaviors, your overall vibe, maybe values, and how people know what your values may be. And this doesn't mean that in all situations at all times you're exactly these things, because we would be very monodimensional, but that, I don't think that makes sense. You would just be very linear, and it'd be a short line. But it's the flavor of kind of who you are. And you could be pretty spicy, so you could have a whole heck of a lot of flavors within you, or you could be a little bit more mild, but you still got flavor, right? So people can experience this and they can articulate what it is, and it carries through from how you interact and how you choose to communicate and speak. And so these are things that design the relatability in you so people can connect with you. You're really a human being, right? And you've got flaws, because we all do. And that's okay. And so no matter what type of field you might be in from a professional standpoint or trying to enter into a field, these things don't matter, differentiate our brand identity. It's really about what makes you human. And then again, how people emotionally connect to you. So building on our example of Riviera, that so Riviera realizes that she is deeply value driven and believes in a people first performance approach. Pretty cool, right? And so with that, people first performance is something that kind of became a little bit of her mantra. And so she would use it a lot in how she communicated. And so it became a sticky message. It connected with other people. Other people would start to say it, or they would just come to know her to always use this phrase. And, that's kind of a cool thing, because then she can incorporate that into, her presentations, into maybe her social media accounts, or into her resume or her company website in the bio section. So just different ways that you can help further express your brand identity. What's number 2?
Number 2 is promise. And let's be clear. I mean, it's about what you're known to deliver.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily like a deliverable all the time, right? It's kind of what you carry with you as, here's my way of doing things. Here's my way of showing up. And it really is the heartbeat of your brand. When you think about promise in this particular way, it is probably the consistency of what you do. So even, you mentioned, I believe, that your brand shows up whether you intend it to or not. There are things which are going to show up in you, and they show up. Those are your promises that you are delivering. Now, the clearer and more focused you are in regard to your promise, the better it will be as far as people having understanding of who you really are and not creating confusion, right? It's important that you know that you don't have to do everything, right?
Yep.
You just want to do the one or the two things that you want to be known for consistently, right? Because what your brand promise does is it becomes a filter for some of your decisions. So sometimes it might also feel a little bit like your value structure, right? Where you are, here are the things which are really deeply important to me. And, it could be, as an example, you might be an executive who really looks at chaotic situations, and they can help clarify it. And that's a promise that they bring, right? They bring clarity in chaos. I had a coworker that I worked with who could sit in a room when all these debates were going on about what we should be doing with a certain project or something like that. And he wouldn't speak much at all. But when he did speak, he would say one word and he would create clarity. It was like all of a sudden we would all be like, yes, that's it. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And that's an example of someone who brings clarity in chaos. You might also be someone like since we work a lot with entrepreneurs and independent contractors, you might be someone who promises high touch, deadline driven service, right? And in those situations, that's your promise to people is you're a high touch professional is someone who's very connected to their client. not every single, as an example, not every contractor is high touch.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are high touch, let that stand out for yourself and let that be part of your promise. Riviera's promise is really about helping companies build emotionally healthy teams.
Mm-hmm.
So think about the fact that, as Raquel, you brought up that, her identity is people first. And now when you stack the promise into it about building emotionally healthy teams, a people first person who is helping to build emotionally healthy teams. That really says that this is her lane. This is where she's strong. This is part of who she is. So if that's the case, we said there are 3 pieces, right?
3 building blocks. Yes.
3 building blocks. Yeah, I should have.
So
I could picture like a little ABC building blocks,
wow.
Yeah. I don't know. We don't have any of those anymore. I don't think. I think we gave away all
I
those.
think our kids are well beyond those stages. Yeah.
They are.
But building block 1 was identity, and it
Mhm.
still is identity. And building block 2 is promise, and building block 3 is proof. These are your receipts, right? So if anything comes into question, you get receipts, because you can back it up by saying, here are the things I've completed, and you can demonstrate that. You may have testimonials on your website. You might have a performance review or a thank you email or something of that nature. It's just demonstrations of the work that you've accomplished or you're in the process of accomplishing and how you've gone about doing those things. These are all the receipts that you start to gather. So like for Riviera's example, she gathered testimonials from previous clients and stories from, just various types of projects that she got involved in, grabbed snippets of feedback that had been provided to her. And so all of these things manifested into just really a nice assembly of proof that shaped her portfolio. And it also built trust with new prospects so that people could feel more connected to her just through the story of how other people were able to relate to her and the work that was done. So when it comes to like personal brand, it's not this huge undertaking that you need to architecture and kind of figure out like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to spend months about this. Again, as a reminder, your brand is working for you all the time, and either for you or against you. And we really want to help you focus more on the for component of it. So the magic of it is it's just in the details. It's again, how do you show up? How are you helping others solve problems? How are you helping others win? And when we talked about it at the opening, about there are times when people might be together and start talking about someone who's not present, if they're saying things that aren't a favorable way, like all of a sudden there's all these allies for somebody. Does that person know it? Give them the gift of understanding that, gosh, you've got a lot of allies out there. And this is a great thing because now they have a broader community of who they can connect to and go to help them move their career along or help grow and build your business. The counter to that, should things be said that maybe don't necessarily stack up to how somebody might want their personal brand to be known as, throw the person a bone, help them out so that they can kind of course correct that. And remember, saying things like, this is just the way I am, is not an excuse. It's a choice. You choose to be who you are, and you can make choices to do things differently. Is it going to be difficult? Sometimes it might be difficult, and other times maybe not. It might be actually pretty freeing for you. So look at these different choices that you have in front of you, capitalize on building your brand, building that trust with other people, and just see how your career and your business will flourish.
Absolutely. And, you were talking earlier about You're building, you're either, your brand is either working for you or it's working against you. And I will also add that it could be working for you with some people and against you with others. I think of people who are, more in your face, as an example. There are certain people that really works for. That being in someone's face and kind of confronting them with truths and things like that is a real positive. And for others, that might not work as well. So understand that your brand, when you intentionally show up, you're showing up because you're trying to reach the people who you most are intending to connect to and connect with. So,
yeah, and you're not meant to be everything for everyone. And
absolutely.
if that is like, today o'clock that you're just learning this, welcome, because it's gonna be okay. There's gonna be haters out there, and let them hate. Who cares? Because you don't need them in your community. Some examples of that. Just think about anybody is a public figure. Actors, athletes, politicians, etc. There is definitely the scales of love and hate for all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were just watching a basketball game and talking about one of them, weren't we?
We were.
But we won't bring up names.
Well, we were actually talking on both sides,
Yes.
Good, bad, and indifferent.
That is correct. So keeping that in mind, there are ways in which you can move your brand forward.
Yeah.
That it works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Things like when you build trust with your audience. So creating opportunities where you build trust by either delivering on something that you say consistently, or you align with others without actually being offensive. You mentioned the water cooler talk, and someone might actually take as a takeaway, go back, as you said, and talk to someone. I mean, that could be part of your brand, that you take that information and you carefully curate it and help them with something that maybe they might be struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
It can also be that if people are recommending you when you aren't at the water cooler, right? They're having a conversation about a particular topic, and they say, "Oh, you should talk to Brickell about that," right? Mm-hmm. So those are things that move your brand forward. And then on the flip side, there are the things that work against your brand. The big things like inconsistency. Inconsistency can show up in multiple ways, but two that I can think of right away: inconsistency in delivery on something. So when we talk about your promise, just being inconsistent with that, or inconsistency in the messaging that you provide to people, so that they're not clear about who or what you really are.
And can I just insert something here? This is where if you're the type of individual who is uncertain about your own style, your own leadership, and not comfortable or confident within who you are, you may experience that you kind of waver and try to appeal to the person that is in front of you. And you're working to meet their needs, right? So you're trying to create relatability by meeting their demands or their expectations. And then you encounter the next person who might have a different set of demands and expectations. And you're trying to create harmony. And so now you're flexing who you are as a leader with that individual. I've seen this so many times, this happen. Now the two leaders are together and talking about you, and they have wildly different experiences with you. So this is an example about this inconsistency, is that you know, getting to the place of really knowing what your values are, what are the things that you're focused on, what's your clarity about who you aspire to be, and do those things, but do them across all environments.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest mistakes you can make, I believe, is letting others define your brand because you don't, right? You know, as
They
you brought
will,
up,
they will, yeah.
yeah, you brought it up earlier, right? I mean, it's like whether I choose to or not, my brand is actually preceding me and speaking, you know, who I am and things like that. And so if I let other people define it, then, you know, I get what, as they say, I get what I get and don't have a fit. But I do have opportunity to modify my brand. And that's the beauty of it, right? As you talked about, is that if you don't like where you are with your brand, then change it.
Yep.
Right? Just like that.
Just like that. And so, you know, we want to provide to you like just an action that you can take to help start creating clarity for you. And this is pretty simple. The action is to write out a statement, or you can write multiple statements, but it's really about identifying, you know, or helping you identify what your brand is, and the format of it being that you're going to write I, and then insert something that it is that you are, you know, about yourself that you do pretty consistently. And then you're going to complement that with so that others can, or the company can, or the customer can, and then insert the fill in the blank there. So an example of this could be, you know, I coach executives around effective speaking or communication so that they can have greater impact on employees and the organizations that they're leading. Or it could be something that, you know, I do project management so that we can keep our projects on track, on budget, and on time. So, you know, again, these are really simple statements, but it helps drive clarity for what is my brand? What are the things that I'm known for and that I know I'm known for? And so how do I start really designing more about how I show up to fit in with these statements? And then with that, start tracking your wins. How do you start recognizing what are others paying attention to? What are you getting positive feedback on? What are others thanking you for, or sending, you know, a review on your website, whatever it might be. And then, you know, journal your values. Typically, these don't change. They can when there might be disruptive things that happen within your life experience. And but being really clear on what it is that your values are, and what you're really kind of anchored into, because those are important in your brand identity. Anyway, bring those together and then determine how do you want to provide this in your behaviors, in your vibe, and how you communicate, so that there is some consistency for you. There will be fluctuation, no doubt, because, you know, for some individuals, as an example, me being one of them, humor is a value. And I appreciate that. And yet, I also need to be aware that not every environment is it appropriate to be humorous or to insert humor, right? And so that could be a departure from the consistency piece, whatever it might be, right? So I just wanted to provide some sort of an example. But again, really being able to hone in on, this is who I am, this is how I want others to experience me, so that you have clarity around those things. And then when we think about wrapping up with Riviera's example, what is her brand today? She got there because she took the time to write this statement and get really clear on what her values are.
Sounds like Riviera really went through a nice little evolution, but it wasn't so difficult because it was just looking at like what her values are and how she intended to show up. And people write intention statements and keep them nearby so that they will practice. They can say it. You can just keep saying it so that you get it into you, and your mind and your brain and everything that is locked in on, here's how I show up.
Are those things different?
Your mind and your brain?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know, but it could be sometimes. Sometimes your mind can be elsewhere, but your brain is still here, right? So.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Was it okay to use humor now?
It's a choice.
It is. You are correct. But keep building your brand.
Yep.
And, make it one that you really feel good about and strong about, and you are intentional about, so that you know how you're showing up.
There you go. Everybody, thanks for being here. Thanks for your viewership. You matter. Let us know what further content you want to hear about, how we can really help support you. We're here for you. So if you want to throw things our way, we're sounding boards. We're happy to provide anything that we can to continue to help you grow in your success and on your journey. And don't forget to do all the really cool things on social media. So you're going to subscribe, you're going to like, you're going to follow, you're going to reshare, drop comments, and really appreciate all of you being here.
Yeah. And then talk about us at the water cooler in a positive way.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. Until next time.